Alright, what's up y'all, LakerFan here. As I was about to tell today's video, here to rank all the takeover perks in NBA 2K24 in tiers. So, as you can see, this is the order that we had in 2K23. Accelerator was the absolute king of the takeover perks. It was by far the best and not anything was even close. Then we had things like Extender, Sponge, Juice, Saboteur, all kind of in that next tier. Then we had things like Second Chance, Stay Warm, Minimizer, Suppressor, all as pretty useless takeover perks that were all D tier or below. And then Decelerator was one that kind of stuck out as like a middle ground, decent one that can be annoying for some people like slashers, but for outside shooters and stuff like that that aren't constantly tightly guarded on most of their scores, it's not a huge deal. But a lot of that stuff still applies to this year's game. Obviously, these takeover perks have not changed the way they work as far as the functionality, like Decelerator in terms of it slowing down takeover gain, or same with Saboteur, dropping the amount of takeover you would lose. The thing is, how much better or worse are they now in 2K24? So, we're here to re-rank them, and I hope y'all enjoy. If you do, feel free to drop a like, sub if you're new to them, notice, all that good stuff, and like always, try to win 2,000 likes. So, to get straight into this, we're going to go from bottom to top, and nothing changes with Suppressor. It is the F tier takeover perk in 2K24. Absolute garbage. All this takeover perk does, in case you guys don't know, it's going to be dropping the amount of ratings that your opponent is going to be gaining when they have takeover on. Now, to be fair, this year's game does apply a lot of ratings to your main takeover when you do activate it, or for instance, even Mamba. It could really go hard to have Suppressor compared to last year in this year's game if you have Suppressor when they pop their Mamba takeover, and then at that point, you're dropping a lot of different ratings that they would be gaining. But even still, to drop ratings on someone that only would apply to when they have takeover active is pretty useless if you ask me. Same thing goes for Minimizer. It's going to be making it so your opponent loses their takeover more quickly, and this is a better one than Suppressor, but both of them are still garbage. Obviously, that's how it should be as well. The one thing Minimizer was good for in last year's game was there was that heater mode in the theater where you would start the game with your takeover active, and if you didn't have one of these good takeover perks, like maybe let's say Extender would be really good for that, then Minimizer was pretty good for it because it would make your opponent's takeover go away quicker. But that's like the one niche thing that I would have thought it was okay to run for. Besides that, it was pretty garbage, and it still is in this year's game too. So then next up, we even still are staying course of what last year's game would have been ranked, and we have Stay Warm in the D tier. So Stay Warm is pretty much if you make bad plays, it makes your takeover go away slower. So let's say it's actually maybe decent for people that constantly use dunk meter, because if you do use the dunk meter and you end up in a uber super contested dunk, or just in general even miss a dunk at all, you guys will probably see that it says very late or very early on every single miss that you get. So when you get very lates and very earlys, it's considered a bad shot attempt, because I guess that's just how everything applies, right? But with shooting, you can be a lot less precise with your shot on the meter or your release, so to say, and it won't be a red. If you do shoot a red on anything, whether it's a driving dunk, standing dunk, a mid-range shot, a three-pointer, it's gonna give you bad shot selection, and it makes your takeover go away like crazy. So Stay Warm does apply to that. If you're a pure slasher out there and you want to try it, you can absolutely give it a test. But for the most part, obviously, we're gonna be superior in a lot of different categories for all these top takeover perks. So far, nothing is changing too much compared to last year, and it's also gonna be like that even still. So we have things like Second Chance and Decelerator both in the C tier. To be fair, I think something like Second Chance, as far as the tiers, I would have put it in the D tier with Stay Warm last year. In this year's game, Second Chance, off the idea of maybe trying to save for that Mamba takeover and how valuable that can be, Second Chance allows you the opportunity for when your takeover meter is full on the primary one, you can not activate it, and if you, let's say get a reach-in foul or throw a turnover or any bad thing, the bad shot selection I was just talking about as well, anything that you do related to that will make it so your takeover does not get lost. So all things considered, with Accelerator not being quite as dominant and superior, you can make a case to run like takeover perks like this in the C tier a little bit more, because there's no ridiculously superior S tier. There will still be an S tier in today's video, but it won't be to the level of how Accelerator was last year. And then, as we already mentioned with Decelerator, it can be annoying for slashers out there when your opponent has Decelerator, because obviously with every finish that I'm going to do in the paint, if you have Decelerator and you're the one that's guarding me, I'm going to be getting decreased takeover gain for every single score that I get. Whereas for shooters, you can be wide open, and if the Decelerator is what your defender has, it won't really apply to you in terms of dropping your takeover. Whereas, again, for contested finishers and stuff like that, it will be a constant thing that you have to deal with, and it can be very annoying for those specific people. So the only thing I would really recommend Decelerator for over any other takeover perk is if you know you're playing against a pure slasher in like a matchup or a wager or something like that. I know not a lot of you guys are out there doing stuff like that, but if you know for a fact you're going to be playing a post score or a slasher, Decelerator can be very valuable in terms of that takeover decrease that your opponent is going to be getting. Alright, so next up we have the B tier. As you can see, we have Saboteur, Juice, and Accelerator all going into the B tier. So I would say for the most part, I think last year Juice was more of like an A tier, and then Accelerator was also easy S tier. Saboteur could be slightly debated A tier, but most likely B. But in this year's game, I have them all grouped up in the B tier. Probably also a bit more reasonable to run than the C tier takeover perks like Second Chance and Decelerator, but I still would say don't sleep on these in situational usage. And same goes for some of these as well. Situational usage can be definitely applied, like Juice for if you, just want to shoot the ball really well and you only pop Sharp Take. Or also with the way that Mamba works in this game too, how Juice can apply to that, that's fire. There's a lot of different reasons or utility to some of these. Accelerator gains at such a decreased rate compared to last year as well, and when you stack it up against the other takeover perks in this game, it's not quite as valuable. So it just finds its way into the B tier off its power, but the concept of getting takeover faster for the things that you do can still be really nice. So I'm not here to call it the most garbage takeover perk there is in the game by any means. I'm just saying it has been nerfed quite a bit in terms of the rate that you do gain that takeover. For Saboteur, we're pretty standard with this. Obviously, it's for the types of people who are playing pure lock and comp pro-am, or like back end, like pure power forward, so to say, and you're playing against the center. And like just the pure defensive builds in 2K24, it does make sense to run Saboteur on. If you get a lot of steals and blocks, more power to you. Obviously, run this takeover perk if you want to completely destroy other people's takeover when you're getting steals and blocks. And when you stack that up, if you're talking ones court as well, where you're getting a lot more of those steals and you're forcing your opponent to have to deal with that a lot more, Saboteur can be very solid as well. And for ones court specifically, that's where we can start talking a lot more about these B tier type takeover perks, because with things like Extender and Sponge, obviously, Sponge you can't even utilize on ones court at all. And then for Extender, by the time that you get takeover most of the time in ones, especially if it's make it take it, but even if it's not make it take it and it's the losers out, it's still pretty rare that you even need to utilize Extender. Generally, when you get takeover, anything that's not Extender can still last all the way to the end of the game. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is these B tiers can absolutely be utilized for ones court, and I think all of them are the main ones I would explain as well. Besides, again, maybe Decelerator if you're a big and you're playing against a lot of slashes and post scores. Besides that, I wouldn't really recommend Second Chance, unless I don't think saving for Mamba take on ones is a good idea. And besides that, like I said, Saboteur, Juice, and Accelerator, all really good. Also, if you guys didn't know, I'm pairing up with the NBA 2K Lab this year, so you can use code Laker for 20% off at checkout at their website. That's NBA2KLab.com. On this website is all types of really good statistical jump shot information. You can also test the jumpers on their website too. Plug the controller straight into your phone or to your PC. You can get early, green, late. It'll tell you where you need to adjust on that jump shot, or if you don't know what jumper you want to run, you just go to their jump shot recommender, you punch in your height, the jump shot rating that you're working with, and then based on the milliseconds of timing that you get, it'll recommend you a jump shot. So again, if you want to use code Laker for 20% off at checkout, that's NBA2KLab.com. Appreciate you guys, and we'll get back to the video. Now, coming in at A tier, we have Extender, and then coming in at the S tier, we have Sponge. I must say though, that I think Sponge is considered a pretty low S tier, and Extender should be considered a very high A tier. I know we don't have other things to compare them to or anything like that, but it's a powerful A tier and a pretty low powered S tier. So they're very close to each other, but they're not on the same level. So with Extender, I find myself on my pure inside in the pick and roll game getting takeover pretty easily, right? I'm pretty involved in the game. I'm getting a lot of points, rebounds, assists, all that stuff, blocks, all that included. And I am not really utilizing Sponge quite as much as other people are. Whereas for spot ups, like maybe pure locks and back ends and stuff like that, or even shooting guards in some cases, you may be a little bit less involved statistically between points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, all that, and then you're going to be able to leech the takeover off of your other teammates between your point guard and center, getting pick and roll assists to each other. It stacks up on top of that as well. Anything on the break where your center throws an outlet pass to someone else, all that is going to be utilizing Sponge to an even double effect where you're getting two teammates to leech takeover off of. And then even if your point guard's like, let's say isoing, and he just isos to the dunk or isos to the three, you're still getting percentages of his takeover that are still being applied to you. And generally it's a pretty progressive, like 2% every single time someone does something. Maybe it can be 1% from time to time. This is a very good just extra credit takeover perk that's going to be giving you a progressive amount every single time for everybody doing something. But again, if you're more involved in the game and you're talking long paced games, like I don't even think 3v3 is worth Extender being ran, to be honest with you guys. I think just 5v5 game modes, Extender is where it's at. So even still though, I do think you need to be a very heavily involved position between a point guard, or if you're an active shooting guard that gets a lot of touches and a lot of runs with the ball, or if you do also need to be utilized as a center. If you're someone that's coming out there and you're a popper that's getting like maybe 8 points and 6 rebounds and 2 assists a game, I don't think Extender is the ideal. You would want to run Sponge in that case. But if you're someone that's coming out there scoring like 20 points, 15 rebounds, and like 6 assists every game, I would say, personally, that I think Extender can be better than Sponge. Whether it's for the idea of running Mamba Take that can last extremely long, or also if you want to just pop like Play Take, Sharp Take, Slash Take, anything like that, it'll just in general last pretty long. And I think Extender has some really good value to it, even superior to Accelerator and all these other B tier takeover perks as well. So that is our video for the takeover perks in 2K24. I know not a ton has changed in comparison to last year. I think it's more top heavy that it's changed between like the Sponge, Extender, Accelerator dynamic, and even Juice as well has lost a little bit of value. But that is subjective, because in last year's game and years before that, you would get takeover additions, or we'll call it like a +5 to your non-takeover related attributes. So if you had Sharp Take, it would boost your driving dunk by 5 and your speed by 5, even though it didn't apply to it, and then your primary things would get +8. Whereas now in this year's game, it's +10 to all the primary things, but then it doesn't apply to your non-primary things. So also it's mixed in, so like let's say if you pop Slash Take, that means you're getting the post attributes and the driving dunk and the standing dunk, all that stuff. Defense is boosting your rebounding, Prim D, and interior defense and all those other related things with it. So to be fair, Juice can be seen as better in some cases and worse in some cases between this year and last year. Same with also the fact that we already mentioned the Mamba mentality as well. It does go a long way if you're popping that, because you're getting every single takeover in the game, and then you're getting those additions to the ratings boost off that, which can go a long way. But again, with the primary takeover, it's decreased in its value because we're getting less attributes actually boosted across the whole build, and we're not getting those +5s. So anyway, that's all video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, feel free to drop a like, sub if you're new to noties, all good stuff. And like always, try to spend 2,000 likes. If you made it to the end of the video, put perk in the comments, start punching right through, or you can put take if you would like as well. But anyway, that's all for video. Appreciate you guys watching. None of that, take it easy, man. Peace.